I recently heard Penny give her talk, and her remarks on experienced workers are right on target and very much in alignment with Encore, Palm Beach County's messaging. So I asked her to share with us today, and I appreciate her remarks. Let me tell you a little bit about Penny. She is the founder and managing director of Remarkable HR Inc. She is also an award-winning human resource consultant, an excellent speaker, if I could say so myself, based on hearing her, and a source of timely, practical employment-related advice for businesses on entrepreneur.com. She's been in business for 30 years. She has been an executive in businesses ranging from high technology startups to billion-dollar manufacturing operations, and has founded 4 successful human resource consulting practices, one in Boston, one in Detroit, and 2 in South Florida. She has also headed a nationwide human capital advisory and recruiting practice for CBiz, a large publicly traded business consulting company where she was named Business Leader of the Year in 2006. So Remarkable HR focuses on finding the best talent for its clients and helps email businesses, small businesses, to properly hire, manage, and keep great employees. And that's going to be a big challenge in the days ahead, right, Penny?
Right.
Okay, so if you would begin to share with us, please.
We
Yes.
see your screen.
Oh, wow.
Yay.
Okay, guys, sorry.
Thank
this is
you.
great.
Okay.
So I'm going to probably move quickly through some of it. I want to, the last part of it's the most important, I think. So I'm going to move quickly because we've had a little problem. To start out with, and I know we're all seeing this everywhere we're reading the business news, is that there is a problem, a major challenge in getting talent. And there are lots of different reasons. I spoke previously in previous years about what was going to come because of the fact that the baby boomer generation was so much larger and many people were beginning to retire early. And as that progressed, we would see the generation in between, the sandwich generation, as much smaller. It's just finite. It's a smaller generation. And then the millennials coming up behind them have a very different work ethic. So we're having major challenges for businesses. They're having, you can see with this chart over here, which came from Manpower, the huge talent shortage that we're experiencing. And we're all reading about it. We're reading about some of it. The theory is because people were collecting unemployment and the pandemic made it okay not to pay rent or mortgages for a while, that people weren't looking for jobs. And I'm not sure that's true. On the other hand, there were kids staying home from school, and there were parents that had to be there when they had not had to be there before. And then when they were able to go back to work, the kids were still at home. So there are all kinds of reasons why there's a talent shortage, but let's talk about what we might do about it. The solution from my perspective is let's take another look at those baby boomers that a few years ago, everyone was so eager to kind of nudge out of the workplace because they're still around and they have value to offer. Here are just a few of the baby boomers out there. And according to AARP, 10,000 US citizens turn 65 every day. And here are just a few famous ones to take a look at. And obviously these are vital people that contribute not only to our economy, but to our intellectual bank in the world. So let's look at the current workforce. And again, I'm going to go through these quickly, but anyone who would like a copy is welcome, either from me or from Rosemary or Christine. You're welcome to have a copy. Some of these slides may prove useful to you because we have the baby boomers. We have that unhappy generation called Generation X, the sandwich generation caught between the huge population of baby boomers. They're only 28% now, but just a few years ago when I did a presentation on a subject similar about the managing the multiple generations, they were 42%. And that was like 2 or 3 years ago. So we're seeing a mass exodus from the workplace for baby boomers. Generation X is just caught between the two generations. It's finite, and a lot of them are not all that happy. They're stalled in their careers, they feel, and wherever they are, they feel that's as far as they're going to go in many instances. And I love this book. Sorry, millennials, we're not dead yet. Mm-hmm. We're still out there, and we are still capable of adding a whole lot of value. You will see some of the characteristics and traits of the baby boomers. And one of the things I always like to point out is the service orientation of the baby boomer generation. These were the Rotary clubs, the Kiwanis, the Lions, etc., who wanted to do good in the world by banding together. And as many of you may know, those same clubs now are running into some issues getting new members. More about them. The work ethic is outstanding. So one of the things you'll see later on, I will be emphasizing again, the work ethic, because what a lot of employers are finding out, when they pushed out those baby boomers, they had to hire 2 millennials to replace them, because the millennials tend to want to work pretty much an 8-hour day. That's not necessarily a bad thing. They want to balance their lives more. And that really started with Generation X. They wanted to have a work-life balance as well, whereas baby boomers tended to jump into the fray and work whatever hours were required, to get the job done. The motivators are, I think most of us know, baby boomers like independence, and they were willing to take some risks. But they don't like to be talked to as though they are aging and that they are too old to do anything. They don't like hitting that glass ceiling. Maybe a lot of baby boomers left the workforce because there was no place for them to go and continue on their career path. They felt stymied and at a dead end, so they left. The keys to working with them, and this again is part of a presentation I do for managers to figure out how to get the most from the different generations they manage. And for baby boomers, they really do respond to attention and recognition. They don't necessarily need it as much as the following generations, but they do respond to it. They're less likely to give recognition to others. And part of the reason for that is because they themselves don't necessarily need it in order to come in every day and do their very best work. And because they don't, not all of them got a trophy every time they played a sport or a blue ribbon just for showing up. Okay, so they don't need it as much, and therefore they don't give it as much. It's not necessarily mean-spirited. It's just a difference in the generations. Well, what are the liabilities of having baby boomers about? Well, they expect everyone to be workaholics because they are workaholics or have been in their career. Some of them started out their careers working long hours, and they resent the fact that the following generations don't see the need to do that. They can say they're working smarter, not harder, but to a baby boomer, they may see it differently. So it's always good to remember that because they were workaholics, it was mentioned in my introduction, I worked for CBIZ. And when I came on board, I was working with founders of Schmidt, Raines, Treese, Dickinson, and Adams, local firm, very well known at the time. And the principals were all still there. And they would have a weekly meeting in which I participated because I was the director level. And I would hear them criticizing the other workers, the younger workers. Oh, I saw him show up at 8:30, and we don't want him coming in at 8:30. He should be here at 8 o'clock and carrying on. And I said, but let's look at the work product. How about the work product? But I'm just saying, workaholics, yes, baby boomers tended to be judgmental and still may be. And they like to know what the process is versus just, here's the answer. How did we get there? They like to look at that. Now, in regard to recognition, they do like things that they can hang on the wall or show people. If you're going to give them recognition, that is something they do enjoy getting. So it's good to keep that in mind if you're managing baby boomers. And how to communicate best? Well, doesn't surprise anybody that baby boomers prefer in person if they can get it. Texting, email, of course, we've all adjusted to the way business is done now, but we're looking at preferences right now, and in person, they prefer in person, and they like a personal touch from managers and to be included in the decision making. So, and you know, being a baby boomer myself, I look at the traditionalists, and I recall when I was managing the New York State Assembly intern program for the New York State Legislature, I was assigned 3 assistants, and the first 2 and I were working along beautifully together, and the third one came in, and her name was Susan Gill. And I said, Susan, you're so welcome, yada, yada. And she said, at your age, you should be calling me Mrs. Gill. And I was her supervisor, and I was taken aback because I thought, being a baby boomer, first names were the way to go. And she made it very clear that was not acceptable. I never forgot it. And I love her. She's a lovely lady. So what are the advantages? Are you a baby boomer? And if so, why should someone hire you? Or if you're helping baby boomers find new opportunities, why should someone hire them? Older workers tend to be skilled and experienced. Those are the facts. And they bring critical thinking. That part where I said they like to know the process, that's because they want to look at it and figure out if it's going to work repeatedly or if this was a fluke, that something good came out of the way something was done. And they know how to ask questions. They know what questions to ask. And they know how to get access to clients, which is key in many, many, many companies. They stay in jobs longer. They take fewer days off. These are facts. This isn't conjecture. In 2018, the median tenure of workers age 55 to 64 in all industries was 10.4 years, which was more than 3 times the median for workers ages 25 to 34. And that's taking into account adjustments for the longevity in the workplace overall. They tend to be less restless, and they're more loyal to employers. They're not going to change jobs for $1.298. They are loyal to their employers, more loyal, I should say. They're not as loyal as the traditionalists who would go to a company and stay for their entire career. Okay, they would stay their entire career for General Electric or Honeywell or whatever, but they stay longer than Generation X or the Millennials. And I love this story of a company owner that said he was really hesitating about hiring a 60-year-old because how long would that guy be in the workplace, right? He'd hire him and then he'd be gone. Well, 10 years later, the owner was enticing him to stay another year in order to train a replacement. So if you hire someone and they stay with you and are productive and contributing for 10 years, that's not a bad deal at all. We talked about the strong work ethic, and the facts are that businesses report that their older workers are very often the first to arrive at work, and they remain focused throughout the day, rarely missing work. And I think one of the things that you're seeing in the workplace a lot now, and I'm hearing this from my clients, are that the younger workers may be at work. Maybe they won't be on time or first one, but they're always on their phones, or they're on their phones a lot of the time, and it's not necessarily work related. They're looking at social media, they're doing some shopping, they're looking at sports scores. They are not as focused as older workers tend to be. They just aren't. And I've had to work with clients that had to let people go because no matter what their policies are, I always get a kick out of clients calling me and say, we need a policy. And I say, yes, look in your handbook. It's there. The policy's there. You have to enforce it. And it's very difficult with millennials to keep them off their phone for personal reasons. And experienced workers take the job more seriously. I love this story. As doing research for this, a business owner talked about after they were hit by Hurricane Sandy, and he went in to work on getting his operation cleaned up so he could recommence operations. His older workers showed up, not being asked and not being asked to be paid. They wanted to get things back open and running. The younger people did not. He did not ask them to, but they showed up. And that's just a good demonstration of that work ethic and loyalty we were speaking about with older workers. A lot of older people retain business knowledge and know how to network. And I can tell you, just this morning, I got a call from a gentleman in a large insurance company asking me for referrals for employment attorneys. And of course, I was able to supply him with 3 great names and contact information immediately, because I'm in networking groups and I've known people like Marilyn Durant for many, many years, and I know their reputation. So I can with confidence say, here's someone to talk to. This person will be able to help you. And the younger people, even if they think they should be networking, may not know how. I remember being at a Boca Chamber breakfast when they were in person, and a young man going around giving everyone his business card and saying, I'm a financial advisor, and he's handing it out. And we're all thinking, we don't know you. We wouldn't refer business to you. We wouldn't bring our business. We don't know you. But he didn't understand showing up and handing out business cards is not true networking. People in the baby boomer generation know how to network effectively. And they like providing personal attention because they like to deal in person. So they enjoy dealing with the clients. They enjoy that part of the job. And they actually accomplish the goals that they've been set to accomplish, to achieve. And it's not because they have to, it's because they actually enjoy doing it. The biggest hurdle to getting employers to really embrace hiring experienced workers tends to be technology. There's a very strong perception out there, and correct me if you know something different, but I have talked to clients over the past probably 20 years, and it's increasing. Well, they won't know how to use, don't send me anyone over 50. They won't know how to use a computer. They won't know how to do this. They won't know how to do that. That can be overcome, but it takes cooperation from the older person as well. There's plenty of training available, and a lot of it's free. I just Googled technology training in Boca Raton, and you can't imagine how many options there were. Many were low cost, and again, some were even free. There are tutorials that people can get free of charge on Windows, Outlook, part of Windows, Outlook, Excel, Word, even PowerPoint. So why not get that training, take that opportunity so that you have better qualifications? On the other hand, when older workers do embrace it, they very often end up providing more value than younger workers using technology, because they have the nuts and bolts of what needs to be done and what the process is to get it done. And they often can make suggestions about how to use technology more effectively. So it's in many cases an untapped resource that it's just a shame that so many employers have this perception that technology is lacking in the baby boomer generation. Now, a really big trend out there is reverse mentoring, and that is where a younger employee may be helping an older employee with technology aspects of the job, while the older employee is helping the younger employee understand aspects of doing business out in the real world, when you have to talk with people and deal with people. So it's a reverse mentoring situation that has been, I think, pretty popular, increasingly effective in the workplace. And both generations, all three generations, I should say, I don't want to skip the ones that are unhappy because nobody recognizes them because they're small. That's why they're so unhappy. So I don't want to skip them. All three generations have a lot to share. And I love this quote by Aaron Harvey. Seasoned employees have a lot more to teach junior employees about business intuition, because business is much more than trends and technology. It's applied intuition that takes years of experience to develop. And that's the wisdom that the older workers bring to the table. And the best teams are multi-generational. You know, a lot of people speak on diversity, and very often it tends to be more focused in regard to race or sex or sexual identification or sexual orientation. It just tends to be, those are the hot buttons right now. But ageism is another thing that needs to be carefully covered when we're talking about diversity. So each generation has something to bring to the table, and generational diversity should be covered whenever someone is speaking about diversity. And a friend of mine does seminars. She wrote a book called The Illusion of Inclusion. And that is where companies think that they're including everyone at the table, but maybe they're not. And I think this is one area that needs to be covered more by those who speak about diversity than perhaps it has been. Did anyone else see The Intern with Robert De Niro?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I thought that was just such a great movie. I actually watched it twice, because the first time it's an interesting story, but if you watch it the second time, you see all the times that his wisdom and ability to get things done through other people and setting the example in the workplace of how to be a polished professional brought everyone's level higher in regard to their functionality, their efficiency, their effectiveness, their productivity. It was a wonderful, wonderful example. And if you haven't seen it, please do. I think you will enjoy it. I hear from managers that dealing with immature workers can be exhausting. I don't know if you've experienced this, but I have managers that call me and say, I don't know how to get through to these people. What's going on? Why are they doing this? Or why aren't they doing that? And here we can use the multi-generational workforce. I have been sending this quote out, everyone must lead, for some time to my clients and to some of their people, that people need to lead without supervision, lead their peers, and lead upward by asking their bosses the right questions and not delegating the problems upward. Now, I know we've all been in seminars where someone asks a question and it allows the speaker to shine, right? We've all seen that, and we all appreciate that person for asking that question. And that's a good example of asking the right question. Leading without supervision and leading peers, we all understand, but that leading by helping their bosses to do a better job, asking an insightful question at a key point can make the difference between something being done right or something being done in an incomplete or less than stellar manner. So this is a quote I use a lot. And I think baby boomers do more of this leading upward, again, because of their experience and intuition. I like this story about Apple putting their more experienced workers up front in their store so that older people that are not in their teens, walking by will feel pretty comfortable coming in and asking a question, not feel intimidated. There's someone that is, around my age, and obviously this person can help me because they're in the Apple store, or they're one of the people that are experts, so I can feel comfortable. I won't feel as though, a young millennial who probably doesn't like to interface with people that much to begin with and may or may not have the skills of diplomacy, will talk to me and help me. So a lot of people like to deal with experienced individuals, and they prefer that. And I can tell a personal example of being referred to a financial planner. I went and met with the person, and I swear to you, she was straight out of college. And I wondered, no matter how much, maybe she's got the training, she has the license, but are we going to trust her with our retirement funds? Do we have faith that she really will know? And I will speak for myself and say, no. I looked for someone who I felt had done enough of this to have some pretty good experience under his belt to help me. So let's talk about what employers are looking for, because these are very key to individuals that want to re-enter the workforce, whether they're re-entering in a whole different career path, in a whole different capacity, or whether they want to go back to a career they were in, part-time, full-time, whatever. Employers want to see people that are energetic, flexible, and enthusiastic. And I'm stressing those three because those are the things that a baby boomer may or may not convey in either their cover email, in their resume, or even on the phone if they're called about, tell me more about yourself. So these are good words to include when you're describing yourself, whether you're a baby boomer or not, but especially if you are. And flexibility comes high on that list because sometimes baby boomers are perceived as not being very flexible. It's important to convey the general computer proficiency. I know you all know this. I'm preaching to the choir, but you will not believe how many resumes I still see that come to my company that the person has not claimed to have any computer skills in their resume. I mean, they say nothing about it. And by saying nothing, it's assumed they have no skills. And that's a huge thing to leave off a resume. And it will get nowhere because almost every job in the United States of America, from a warehouse clerk to a CEO, they have to use a computer. So for heaven's sakes, that should be included. If you have a track record of reliability, tout it. Tell people about it. I was with a company for this many years. I enjoyed it very much. I like to find a good employer. I'm loyal and I'd like to stay there for a long time. Most employers are hoping to find employees who would like to stay with them for the long time. The emotional maturity, I include in my job postings emotional maturity because so many of my clients have been burned by individuals they hired who are not very emotionally mature, and they paid the price. They thought they were getting someone with all the right skills, and maybe they were, but a huge part of doing a job well has to do with judgment and maturity and professionalism. And there's no substitute for what baby boomers can bring regarding congeniality, communication skills, and the ability to be proactive and to work independently when necessary, to not be coming back every 10 minutes for more direction or more information, to be asking the right questions up front, to take the task and get it done. Invaluable. So number one on my list for baby boomers is that they need to boost their tech awareness. If they're not there yet, they need to get there. If they believe they can find a job that won't require it, they will be looking a long, long time. Again, even warehouse workers have to use computers, okay? So get your tech awareness. If you're looking for a new opportunity, get it to the highest level you can. I mean, I was very fortunate in my early career. I moved to Boston and there was a road called 128. It was like Silicon Valley. I worked for cutting edge technology companies. So I was so fortunate because I had to learn how to use a computer at a stage when many people still weren't using them at all, didn't even have one. And when I went to work for the Japanese, for Mazda Corporation, they thought one PC would be enough for every 40 people. I disabused them of that fact. had to go to Japan and fight with the head of IT because he was sure he was right, and I won. Needless to say, I won. Target your qualifications. Take the time to not just, blather generalities, but what are your key qualities and skill sets that will fit with the position, the kind of job you're looking for. And sometimes you need to talk to a counselor, a career counselor, or even a good friend who's a business person and say, tell me what you see as my key qualities. What do you think about me in the workplace? Can you give me some feedback? And use those descriptors. Make sure you communicate your adaptability. I talk about flexibility, adaptability, same thing. You have to be willing, if you're re-entering the workforce, to take perhaps a different level job, maybe a different kind of job entirely, and not always be in charge. And so that flexibility is important. You're going to be dealing with lots of different generations. It's no longer just baby boomers in positions of power. Younger generation has taken over many slots, and they're going to be giving orders, and they may need your help to understand how to get things done. And that's okay if they ask you for your help or if they're willing to take it. But regardless, you're going to have to be dealing with the younger generation in positions of power. I always tell people, wow the interviewer. Have your facts and talking points prepared ahead of time. Don't just show up. You wouldn't just show up for any important conversation, a sales presentation or whatever. So don't just show up for an interview. Research, go through the questions. I send out questions, and I'm sure Marilyn has done this many times too. When someone is going to interview, I probably 100 different questions that are very frequently asked during interviews. And I tell people, have an answer to every single one of them, that you can do it right off the top because you've thought it through, not because you're being fake, quite the opposite. You've thought through how you really feel about something or what you really know about something, and you're ready to share that. And even more important, convey enthusiasm for the position that you're applying for, because enthusiasm is something every employer wants from an employee. I don't care what age the person is they're hiring. The fact that someone is enthusiastic about the kind of company it is, the products or the services, is very important. So now that we know that the solution to the talent crunch is experienced workers, let's have less discrimination and more intergenerational, multi-generational workforces. Thank you.